Live. Good morning, good evening, whatever time you're listening. If you're listening to the pre-recorded, if you're listening to us live, it's the evening in the United States of America, and we are doing the Practical People Roundtable crowdfunding discussion with myself, Christopher Moonlight, and once again, welcome back Shannon Shea, and also Mike Hickey from Fright Hype. Welcome back, Mike.
Hey, thanks so much for having me back.
And we're hoping that Chad Armstrong joins us soon.
Yeah, I mean, Chad should be here. I think Chad was more confirmed than I was, so I'm sure he'll be here sooner than later.
Interesting. Oh, I see what's going on. Sorry, I had
a lag?
There was a lag for a second, and I realized that I had a window open to the broadcast as well, so I was hearing myself.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, I apologize to anybody who's listening for our technical difficulties. This is our first time using Google Chat, but we're going to have a good time tonight. We are being a roundtable. Instead of being the host that asks questions, everyone's going to just kind of go around and either talk about what they want to talk about or ask questions of one another. And we are all here because we have crowd-funded projects that we're working on. I'm very excited about your project, Shannon. The Phantom Harbor it's not new. You are bringing it back, and this looks like a hell of a lot of fun. And this is a family-friendly kind of horror-themed thing that you're doing.
It's unfortunate because when people ask me what it's like, I always say it's like Mystery Science Theater or Pee-wee's Playhouse with monsters. And then, wouldn't you know, I launch my campaign on Tuesday, the same day that Mystery Science Theater launches their campaign.
Oh, no.
So they got funded in 2 days for $2 million. 2 days.
Well, you know...
And listen, I mean, built-in fan base. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the show. You know, I mean, who isn't? You know, I mean...
Yeah, no, for sure.
So... all I can say is I don't think that Joel Hodgson didn't make any money on the licensing of that show. That's all I'm saying. So
that's one thing about crowdfunding. It's difficult enough as it is, and I suppose it's nice that there's fans can bring something back that was big, and but at the same time, if you're Spike Lee or you're who is the other one?
Zach Braff.
Zach Braff, yeah. It's like...
Or the Veronica Mars movie, right? I mean, that was the one that really started people kind of giving the dirty eyeball to crowdfunding when, it's a bunch of television producers and movie stars that get together to bring back a show that the fans want. So instead of going through the studio system, they said, screw the studio system, went right to the fans, and the fans paid for more Veronica Mars. So it's just... and listen, hey... the fans wanted it, and they're willing to pay for it. God bless everyone in the Veronica Mars campaign, So
I gotta say, if I had Spike Lee money, though, I'm not saying the guy's filthy rich. I don't know what his bank account is like, but it's kind of, you can shell out for a small movie and get it made, and with enough talent and that's
OPM though.
But the thing is, though, man, is you don't know what Spike Lee money is like. Like at the end of the day. This is a guy who's done a bunch of projects. I mean, yeah, Spike Lee is Spike Lee as the name, but what has Spike Lee done that's really been a huge branded project where he's obviously made a bunch of bank on it? Like,
right.
And when was the last time that, and if he did have something that you would call that, when was the last time he did it? So you think about, a person's living expenses over X number of years and stuff. Like, people think about, oh, Spike Lee shouldn't be doing this, but really, why shouldn't Spike Lee be doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
Really, at the end of the day, Spike Lee, probably doesn't have that kind of disposable money to throw at another feature project, whereas he does have a name where, like the Veronica Mars people, where he can't get... the fans want something, but he doesn't have the money to, but the studio isn't fronting the money for it, and he doesn't want to go out of pocket on it. So he goes to the fans and says, hey, if you want this, show us that you want this. And I mean, you can't fault the guy for that. You can't fault Zach Braff for that. You can't fault Veronica Mars, Rob Thomas, and those guys for that. I mean, that's it. They have a brand that people want, and the same thing with Mystery Science Theater 3000. Like, you know, they have a brand that people want. The studio isn't willing to, like, come up with it the way that they really should, and it becomes a thing of like, okay, well, the fans want it, so the fans have to pay for it up front. And that kind of sucks that you're paying for it up front as opposed to paying for a deliverable. Because, I mean, like, you're going to see these fans that are paying 100, 200, whatever the money is for it, and then still paying for it as part of their Netflix subscription. That sucks. But, I mean, really, like, you know,
you make a good point, because it's you know, I know that when I earn some money, I want to hold on to at least some of it. So, you know, and these guys, they have worked hard. They've gotten someplace in their career, and I'm a firm. I am a capitalist. I do believe that, you know, if you make some money, you know, you should be able to keep some of that and maybe do something for yourself that's outside of what you do. But
but
going
you know,
back,
it's more than the money, guys. It's more than just the money. It's also the creative control aspect of it, and that we're not talking about here, because, you know, I mean, you don't know how many meetings Joel Hodgson sat in where people sat there and go, hey, listen, bring Mystery Science Theater back? Great, but here's it. Joel, you're out. We're going to put a 25-year-old girl sitting in the chair between the robots, and it's going to be, you know, sexy fart jokes through the whole thing, and all we're going to show are movies that were made post-1990. And Joel will go, well, that's not Mystery Science Theater. Well, that's our Mystery Science Theater. And then what do? They have the money. And so you have to decide, am I going to sell my soul for the cash, or do I say, screw you, and I'm just going to go crowdfund it myself so it can stay pure? So I think that the same thing with Spike Lee. Spike Lee, if nothing else, is an artist as a filmmaker.
And it's about compromising. He doesn't want to do that.
Right. Exactly. And if you can get around the Hollywood compromise, hey guys, look, I said this and I mean it. Look, this is my Phantom Harbor. This was my Phantom Harbor book that was taken around to studios and this and that, and I had meetings with, you know, I've had meetings with Cartoon Network and all these other places, and it was always the same thing. They always wanted something. They wanted Phantom Harbor to be something that I didn't want it to be, and I had to make a decision. And not that they were saying, we'll fund it if you do that. They were saying, well, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? And the more they talked, the less interested I was. Because again, you have to sit there and say, I came up with this, and now I'm letting you take it, put your big fat fingers in it, mold it into something that I will not have fun doing, but there'll be a paycheck. So what's the point of that? If it was something where they called me and said, hey, Shannon, we're thinking about doing this show. It's called Junkyard in Space. We want you to come down and talk to us about, you know, developing it. That's different. That's their project. They're inviting me to come in and talk about theirs. But something when you're saying, and like they know better than you. They don't know any better than you. It's just that's what they're comfortable doing. So
it's a really good point, because I remember Alec Gillis of Studio ADI talking about a project they had with, it was kind of, he described it as kind of like a puppet version of a Beavis and Butthead type thing, and he and Tom sat in on a meeting with some producers, and suddenly he was sitting with the Kyoto brothers across the way from him, and they were kind of uncomfortable because they realized who Tom and Alec were, and that they had kind of all been brought together, and suddenly they were talking about, well, what if it's not puppets? What if it's little people and we just put makeup on them? And Tom and Alec were like, well, we wanted to do it as puppets. That was, you know, the premise of the show, and so yeah, the stories are the same all over. I know, especially with the Quantum Terror, you know, my lead character is a lesbian, and there's a lesbian romantic relationship that is centered in the movie, and it's not a gimmick. It's not like to, you know, go like, hey, whoa, look, lesbians or something like that. It's a sincere story that I thought would be very interesting to tell. What if a couple in a same-sex relationship found themselves in some weird creature situation? And all these interesting things started to happen in the script. that I just knew if I took it to someone, because it's happened to me before too, they would go, well, we don't think there's enough of a market for a lesbian hero, maybe a lesbian tragic figure, but not a lesbian hero, and maybe if have you thought, develop it more, and maybe we can take the script to Dwayne the Rock Johnson or something like that. It's I mean, believe me, if someone offered to take a script to Dwayne the Rock Johnson, I wouldn't be averse, but or there was another script that I wrote that I took to a producer, and it was about an old giant robot soldier who finds himself stuck on this planet with this 13-year-old girl who wants to be a robot pilot as well, and he has to kind of mentor her, but he's kind of crusty and cranky. And the producer's like, well, you can't do that. And I was like, why not? And they're like, well, everyone's going to think he's a pedophile. And I'm like, can't we even tell a mentor story anymore without someone wanting to be afraid of that thing? And it's absolutely. But anyway, I don't want to get too negative. What I would like to do is kind of take this opportunity as well to, if anyone's listening who hasn't seen Shannon, your Kickstarter campaign or my Indiegogo, to talk a little bit about exactly what it is. What is it exactly that you're doing, Shannon, right now? What is the Phantom Harbor?
Phantom Harbor, like I said, it is Pee-wee's Playhouse with monsters. I mean, the format is it's and the time, we're probably going to condense it smaller, because our shows used to run about 15 minutes, and we're going to try to get lower, smaller. But the idea is that it's like a variety show. There's a through line, a very simple story that has a beginning, a middle, and end, 3 acts. And in between the 3 acts, there are little features, like there's, we like to have little, haunted music videos, or, the last, one of the last things I shot was something called Craftin' with the Captain. And I did that seriously just before I took this out to meet with executives, because I would show them that video and said, see, the captain can teach you, little creepy little haunted things. So it's like a little variety show, and we would introduce more characters and this and that. The problem is that the show scope kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The budget wasn't getting any bigger. It was all out of pocket. I was shooting most of it in my garage, and I, after a while, I just said, you know what, I have to stop. Until I can afford to do this properly, I've got to stop it. And then I had that, like a case in point. This is in the Kickstarter campaign. My Goblin. The Goblin character was literally for just the pilot episode. So I shot it, and it was terrible. It was 2008, It was before, 2D computer graphics were as good as they are now. It was awful. And I admit it, it was really awful. It was an experiment. But so many people responded to that design. I had so many people going, oh, God, I love that creature. What is it? What is it? And I would explain, and I'm going to do a Kickstarter update, but I'm going to give you guys a little heads up first. That design came from 2 things. One, I'm from Louisiana, and when I was a kid, often television was preempted by hurricane watches. And the hurricane symbol, that circle with the kind of 2 tails going off in 2 different directions, was always creepy to me, because it was almost like a giant monster was coming ashore. It was like, Hurricane Camille will, hit landfall tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and then it would come and just tear through the city and flood everything. So that symbol became like really kind of, on a subconscious level, really frightening. That always scared the shit out of me. And here's the other weird thing. Pinocchio. If you watch Pinocchio, the original Disney Pinocchio,
that's a creepy film.
That movie's terrifying.
They're on Pleasure Island, and they're turned into jackasses. And there are these things. They don't talk about them. They don't even really make a lot about them, but they're these big black things with these glowing eyes. And they're not people. They are definitely monsters that are grabbing these donkeys, these children turned into donkeys, and throwing them into cages. When I saw that as a kid, that freaked me out. So I took these 2 things that freaked me out as a kid, the hurricane symbol, which became the goblin's head, and this kind of hulking body from Pinocchio that became the body, and I just combined the 2 of them, and that creature became, he's kind of transformed from this kind of frightening figure. Now he's kind of like, I don't know, Lurch, You know what I'm saying? From the Addams Family, he's just this big goon, but everyone loves him.
You
So
had a fan of yours cross-stitch him.
oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Christine Rose, who was a fan of mine from Gonzales, Louisiana, who by the way cross-stitched me one hell of a slee stack.
I
And I know
saw
that
that
sounds
too.
weird, but I'm telling you, I have a slee stack puppet that Christine made, which is amazing, amazing. And so she cross-stitched this goblin. But the problem with the goblin is that he was sculpted as a rod puppet because, I thought I was going to use him once. So now every time I need to get the goblin, it's a green screen ordeal. It's got a lot of fur on it, which means keying it is a pain in the ass. It's a rod puppet, which means I have to rotoscope out the rods. So to have the goblin in a shot, even for like 3 or 4 seconds, takes me hours of work. Hours of work. And I was thinking, well, if I ever did this right, I would build a suit. I want to build a big suit. But seriously, doing a body cast on an actor, building the muscle suits, building it up with sheet foam, putting fur on it, and I say this to producers all the time, and producers go, we want to do a werewolf picture. The first thing I ask is, will the werewolf be naked? And then they go, well, that's a hell of a question to ask. Why would you say? I say, it's simple real estate. The more exposed werewolf, the more fur you have to buy. And fur costs, if you get 4-way stretch fur from National Fiber Technology, that can cost up to $200 to $500 a yard. You know what I'm saying? It's expensive. It's very expensive. So all of that, I mean, the general public, I don't think they have a clue as to how expensive these things can truly be if you're going to do them well. And unfortunately, because of my 31-year reputation, I can't just, if you'll pardon the expression, shit it out. It's got to look great, because then people are going to look at this and they'll go, this is what Shannon J has to offer? This looks like something I saw at a Halloween store. So it's got to be top flight. Well, $50,000 for what in my head was going to be a year of production, I could spend $150,000 on the goblin suit, but I'm going to figure out a way to do it for about 20, and still make it look like it's a $1 million suit. But guys, that's why when people go, God, you're asking 50 grand. It's like, yeah, but I'm not taking 50 grand and putting it in my pocket. I'm taking 50 grand and putting it into a creative project. That's what I'm taking the money and doing with it. I mean, I wish I was putting it in my pocket. Of course I'm not doing that. And that's only part of it. I mean, I'll let Michael talk, but come back to me, okay? Because it's more than just that. It's not just that. But go ahead.
No, and that's the thing is, like, you're talking about with Phantom Harbor, like, you're talking about saying that goblin suit that could be a $150,000 suit and streamlining it to be a $20,000 suit for the sake of your budget. But the thing that a lot of people don't realize when they see Kickstarters or Indiegogo projects for films, and it's for like 20 or 50 or $100,000, they don't realize that, like, it's not just that level of creative swindling to get it down to like something that could be 150 down to 20, but it's also just, if you're a working professional and you're working in film and you're doing it on a regular basis, chances are by the time you get around to that project that's your passion project that you're trying to push through, you've run out of favors. And so the idea of asking all your friends to work for free, you're past that point. And so the salary for, like, paying the number of people it takes to work on a film, the credit sequence on a film is long for a reason. It takes a lot of people to make a movie.
It's what
And
Alec Gillis
ask all
calls
those people to
sweat
work for
equity
nothing.
too.
What's that, sorry?
It's what Alec Gillis calls sweat equity too.
Yeah, and
I mean,
and that's the
Shannon
thing
is
about
going to be putting a lot of hard work into this project that is hours and hours of just just his time.
And that's the thing is, Shannon is willing to do that for his project, and I'm willing to do that for my project, and you're willing to do that for your project. The thing is that at the end of the day, not everybody that's going to work on that movie is willing to put in that sweat equity, and they want to see something that's going to pay their rent or feed them,
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that I'm at a point where I'm really fed up of, like, getting, like, going out with my hand out to my friends and being like, hey, can you work on my movie for free? I can't do that to people anymore.
No, and you know something, and I'm going to be really, really blunt, and I'm just telling you that there's nothing, and I'm not criticizing. This is just an observation.
Mm.
No one cares about your movie more than you. No one. Not even if you have investors. Investors don't care about your movie. All they want is their money back
Yeah.
and profit. You're the only one that cares. And so what I've learned is, and this is the harsh side of it, you ask your friends, hey, can you come help? Can you come help? And you're on their schedule. And then
Oh.
being a producer is just wrangling people. That's all you're doing. And then once you
Mm.
get them there, this is the other thing that really sucks, is that you have to take whatever they bring and be gracious about it. And you should be gracious because you're not paying them.
Totally, totally.
Yeah. So if you ask your pal who's a grip to bring a light kit and he brings 3 lights and 3 C-stands and 3 sandbags, you better say thank you so much.
Oh my
Thank you
gosh,
very
he's going to bring sandbags? No one ever brings sandbags.
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, but if
I
that's
know exactly what
all,
you're saying.
yeah, but if that's all they bring, that's you have to go, hey, thanks, and you can't even say, do we have a jib arm? Do we? No. Why? Because you didn't pay the guy, and he brought what he could bring, and that's it. And you
Yeah.
have to take it. You have to friggin' take it. Same thing with actors. You don't have money to pay an actor, and you just hire whoever is willing to go. You take whatever they get, and then it's your job to make sure that you have the footage that you cut a good performance. And that's work. It's all work. You
And
know?
when they come to you at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I've got a thing. I got to go until about 7. I'll be back then if you need me." Like,
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, those actors, like, the people that you're getting, you have to work with their schedules, and you
Oh, yeah.
have to be grateful. Because, like you said, I think I brought this up. Christopher, you can tell me. I'm pretty sure I brought this up with Sandy as well. But yeah, like, no one cares about your movie anywhere near as closely as you do. It's your
No.
project. You're the one with the passion for it, and you're the
Right.
one that wants to see it through. So
I
you
gotta
can't expect people to do that.
I gotta
No.
add to it too is when everyone does show up, I make sure that I am the one. They've all shown up to help me. I've shown up to help other people. Not going to name names, but sometimes I show up and those people are not working nearly as hard as the people that have shown up to help them.
Yeah.
And then they say something like, "Hey, we got to, I'm going to a concert tonight." Well, concert tickets are expensive. In my mind, I'm going like, if I have money for concert tickets, that's money for my movie. I'm not going to the concert. When everyone shows up to help me, I make sure that I am completely prepared to show them what I need them to do and that they see that I am going to work however hard they're going to work, I'm going to work harder, not
Amen.
and that means like making sure that there's food there for them. If my cinematographer is a wonderful guy, Anthony Gutierrez, he shows up. He's doing this for a very cut rate. It's been really great. He's brought a Steadicam, great sound equipment, and he shows up and goes, "What are we doing?" And I open up the script and I show him storyboards and I show him they're doing this scene, and this scene, and if we have time, this scene. But if everyone's tired by then, we can, do that another time. And I just remember like opening up my book with my script and my storyboards, and each storyboard was numbered in accordance to the scene. And I was like, "Are these okay?" And he looks at me and he's like, "Do you know how many people have shown me storyboards in my career?" And I was like, "I don't know, 5, 6." He's like, "You're the first person. This guy's got a 20-year career."
Yeah.
And
Well, that's true. That's
and
that.
and this was and it was a moment where I saw that he really did not regret working at a cut rate, driving out from Dallas, which is 3 hours from here. He saw that I was not wasting his time. And I think in terms of the people that come to help, whether they're working at a cut rate or as a volunteer, or if there's someone donating money to my Indiegogo, I do regular updates. It's very important to me that people who contribute in any way to the Quantum Terror know that they are not wasting their time with me. I am working really hard, and I am going to see this movie through, come hell or high water, which we've actually had. We've had floods here. In the last this big cloud just came and stayed over us and filled everything up with water. And I gave an update about it, and I said to everyone, like, hey, it's a setback, but we're still making this movie. So I think we can all agree that there is no wasting of money or time in anything we're doing. We're going to make sure that for every penny that goes in, we're going to do $100 worth of work. At least that's kind of the philosophy that I have.
I think anyone that is serious about doing anything, any independent thing, feels that way. I mean, this is what I don't get. This is something that I haven't gotten for years. Is that I remember when.
Uh-oh, did we lose Shannon?
People making short films and kind of getting deals. I mean, we always heard, the guys that made 405 got a deal. I have no idea who those guys are. Maybe they came up with a Fast and Furious franchise. I don't know, but they got a deal, whatever the heck that was. But then I would be at K&B and meeting directors, and I'd find out that this is the guy that directed a Toyota commercial. This is the guy that directed a I don't know, such and such a commercial. And I'm going, this is the opposite of short filmmakers. These are men and women who are paid, $50,000, sometimes $100,000 for Joe Pitt. I'm sure you get paid $1 million a day to direct 60 seconds at most of film, and you have a $2 million budget, as opposed to some poor schmuck who's directing, I don't know, 4 minutes, 8, 10, 15 minutes of film, and has $2,000. And you would think from a Hollywood standpoint, you'd go, wow, this person took $4,000 and gave me 15 minutes of movie. That's a quarter, right? Excuse me, or an eighth of a feature film. This guy shot 60 seconds of footage or movie story. We paid him $2 million. How is that good economics? But it's because commercials are slick. They're slick. They tell a quick story in 60 seconds. They're to the point. There's nothing wasted. You spare no expense with equipment, with post-production services. The money hose gets turned on. But that's why I always say, you show me a slick commercial, I really don't care. You show me a great short film, you have my attention, really, because that was made by people with passion. So that's all.
I've got to say too, this is I'm not meaning to brag or anything, but I think between my own money, one small investor that we have who's a great guy, and the money we've raised a little over $3,000 on Indiegogo so far. And I'm not saying we don't need more, because we do. But we probably we're making a feature film at the moment for $7,000, and that's we need to get up to about 10, I think, or maybe 11, but that's with a this kind of minimalistic tunnel set. That's with miniatures. That's with creatures. And it's and I am paying people too. It's like Jenna Green, our effects person. She's amazing. I've been paying her. She's been working for way below her rate. I'm paying my actors. I mean, that's really what the money's going towards. But I'm sorry I don't have a webcam, because I have a creature behind me. I'm pointing behind me as if you could see me.
I can picture it, Chris.
It's made completely. It's got some mandibles that are made out of Sculpey, and it's got some tendrils that are made out of foam rubber. But the whole body is like cardboard and packing tape. And we built latex on top of it and added some bubble wrap to it to make it look kind of like it's got pustules or suction cups, like a tentacle, and I think it looks great. A lot of it is Jenna's talent. I mean, I think some of it's my own talent, although I don't have what I would call like the effects artist talent. But For another friend of mine's building miniatures, and she's using like filler foam to make rocks, and she's using paper mache with like grain to make it look like concrete, and it's just the artistry. I mean, it goes above and beyond anything that I ever anticipated. I anticipated this to be like some. I mean, it still kind of is like some sort of minimalistic Ed Wood deal, but it's looking amazing, and I think about Hollywood movies, and I see like, oh, this movie cost like $150,000 or $1 million to make, and I'm looking at it going like, I could probably make the same movie, or maybe even better, at least more artful, and for like even $1 million. Like it's like I'm going like, I understand that there's unions and there's crew and that sort of thing, but I agree with you. I think that there's this sort of I feel like, and this isn't always the case, but I feel like the more money you put into a film, the more artistry kind of goes out the back door. And I could be wrong in that, but
I think there's a big I'm sorry, Michael. There's just two things I want to say just quickly. The first one is, when I was at Stan Winston's on Aliens, I don't know if it was from Bob Burns, but we got a hold of the original Alien suit. And I remember we pulled it out of the crate, and it looked like, because H.R. Giger had made it. It wasn't like designed by H.R. Giger, and then it went to some British, special effects house. I mean, Carlo Rambaldi made the mechanical puppet head, but the actual suit was made by H.R. Giger. And it was just cobbled together with a bunch of stuff. And I remember we were looking at it going, this is the Alien suit? And then it made you realize it was how it was shot, it was the way it was photographed, it was how it was framed and lit in that was really super, super effective. And I have to say that's why it's like you can take your bubble wrap latex creature, and you can if you shoot it right and you're judicious in your editing, and I gotta say it, you don't fall in love with your creature. You never fall in love with your creature. That's the worst. It's a bad thing. You can't fall in love with your creature. You just have to use it as it gets used and move on. You're telling a story. You know what I'm saying? You're telling a story. Story comes first. It really does. So, and there's something else I had to say about you said Ed Wood, and you were talking about something, and my point slipped out of my brain.
I said Ed Wood minimalistic sets, and I also said that the cast and crew were creating something above and beyond what I ever could have envisioned, because I envisioned kind of a cheesy.
I know what it was. You said the artistry, money and artistry. That's what it was. So this has happened to me on more than one occasion. Is that, well, not anymore, because now it's a little, I hate to use the word passé, but it just doesn't have the same resonance as it used to. But I would be working on a monster picture, a horror film, and the director would be sitting there and they'd look at me and they'd go, "Have you ever seen a Tool video?" And I'd go, "Yeah, because I'm actually friends with Adam Jones. Yeah, I've seen Tool videos. Yeah. Well, you know how they do that thing, blah, blah." And I go, "Guys, you can't do that stuff on a Hollywood movie set." That's Adam and Chet Zar and Len Burge and a bunch of guys who are just in a room with a bunch of stuff going, "Hey, let's try this. Okay, hey, let's try that. Hey, I bet if we do this, that'll be creepy. Hey, look at that. That's creepy. Shoot it." It's not like they just sit down and they go, let's storyboard this. I mean, they have, because I actually, Adam has shown me some of his storyboards, but some of it is just, happy accidents and experimentation. And you can't do that when you've got a $10,000 a day, a crew standing around waiting for you to get a hook that's going to make something, throb, or you just can't do it. It's a waste of money. It's the kind of thing that just 2 or 3 people have to do in a room. At the end of House on Haunted Hill, we ended up shooting at Fantasy 2. It was the Skotex and myself, Bob and Denny Skotex, myself, and a few people from K&B, and we were literally doing just that. We'd go, okay, let's set this up. Let's film this. Okay, now let's try that. It was just doing a bunch of weird stuff, and that's how it gets done. You can't do it otherwise. I mean, you just can't. You have a bunch of grips looking at each other and going, they're putting, shaving, they're releasing shaving cream underwater. Why am I standing here watching this? It's like, I don't know what that's. You know what I'm saying? But that's how you do. That's how you do it. You do a bunch of weird shit and you see what floats. It's just, I know. So yes, I agree with you. The larger the crew, the less artistry you can afford production artistry. Post-production artistry is different, but production artistry,
But
yes.
post-production artistry, and I've worked in post. It's a completely different animal. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, really, it's fixing the laziness of production, and I hate to say it, but it's true. It's what a lot of it is. Um, but yeah, it's like I mean, it comes back to when you talk about the story about working on Aliens, which again, you worked on Aliens, and that's insane to me. But like when you talk about it, it goes back to that cliche about Jaws. Like what made the movie Jaws so great? And I mean, Jaws is a note perfect blockbuster in all those senses. But what made that movie great is that the fucking shark didn't work. You know,
Exactly.
if that giant animatronic shark worked, that movie would be shit. Like it really would. Um, I mean,
No,
but it
you're
was
right.
it's
It's a
the
point of
it's the
view camera.
creativity that was born out of that thing not working and them going, okay, well, what if we do a bunch of POV of the shark? What if we do this and what if we do that? It's the creativity that was born out of that and was forced out of that that made that movie as great as it is. And I mean that happens all the time. You talk about
Amen.
you talk about these tool videos where you have these small crews working to figure out all this stuff. And yeah, like that wouldn't work with a huge crew because, like you said, you have a bunch of grips who are they're like like grips are the dudes who are like on a set. Grips are always the guys who can do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, they're tradesmen. Like they really are. They're not movie guys a lot of the time. They're people who are there because it's a gig. It's not because of the love of the movies. It's because they're grips and that's what they do. And
Yeah.
and yeah, it like you get into that and they're not the guys that are thinking about what's going to work in this scenario. Like they're looking at you when you're letting off shaving cream underwater going, why are you doing this?
Right.
It's they're not doing that. And so yeah, it's when you have that smaller crew, when your budget is strapped, that's when the really creative ingenious stuff comes out. And
Yeah.
it's sad that it doesn't happen more. I actually had to go try to find a phone charger to plug in my phone because it's about to die, and that's what's powering my
Uh,
thing here. So I'll be
Well,
back in a second,
I got a
guys.
question for Shannon while you do that.
Go ahead.
Shannon, what is your favorite? And it's probably something you're using on the Phantom Harbor, but what's your favorite kind of low budget trick that you look at and go, that's just that's just a bunch of stuff lying around and look at the result it gets.
I know that sounds crazy. Smoking lights. Smoking lights. I love smoking lights. And I am a shameless copier of Mario Bava. I mean, when I can't remember which movie it was. It was probably either Black Sabbath or maybe Hercules in the Underworld. But one of those films. I mean, he really lit things like a Basil Gogos famous Monsters of Filmland cover, and people. I mean, it was so weird that all of us, those of us who grew up at that time and were reading famous monsters and looking at those covers, it's like if you look at them, they don't make any sense. It's like there's Vincent Price in the House of Wax. One third of his head is magenta and purple, one third of his face is yellow, and the other third of his face is blue. But what's so great is that it's very theatrical, it's very beautiful, and I am a complete sucker for Technicolor pictures. I love it. And I was watching, God, I'm such a nerd. I am so sorry. I was watching Golden Voyage of Sinbad the other day, and I was looking at the live action and going, the interior cave is green. It's just green. Like, where is that light coming from that's making the cave green? What does it matter? A, it's a movie. B, it's a fantasy. Who cares? It's just beautiful. So I love smoking lights. That's number one. You get a lot with smoking lights. That's number one. The other thing I love the old trick of shooting a photograph of something, blowing it up, printing it big, and gluing it onto foam core. That's a Skotech trick. Like if you need to make buildings, like you take a picture of a building you like, you do it at a time of day where there's, and then you literally take a picture of, and then you blow it up and you put it onto a piece of foam core, and it looks like a real building. It looks like a miniature photograph. You know?
We did that in our tunnel set, um, and I've just hung. I found these styrofoam insulation sheets and literally glued cardboard to the tops of them that I folded over and staple gunned it to the drywall, the ceiling of my garage. So the tunnels are literally styrofoam sheets hanging, and Jenna and I just went in and mixed sand with gray primer and painted all these styrofoam sheets, and then we just went and flung different shades and dry brushed and everyone goes in there, and like I have to remind people not to lean against the walls because they're not concrete. You know, people trip against them, and I'm like, oh crap, they're gonna knock over my set. The idea was you know, it's like it's such a low budget movie. I didn't want any liability building a set that like a piece could fall over and flatten someone. But as a result, I have a set that, you know, like my 4-year-old daughter could, you know, just run full speed into and knock the set down. So, you know.
Well, it's the.
Uh-oh, did we lose you?
You know, I was shooting my Rescue from Gekaniki Island episode of Phantom Harbor.
And I love those puppets, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I needed a cave. I literally needed a cave. And I was like, shit, I need a cave. Because I had shot, believe it or not, all the live action. And the cave walls were literally, I bought a roll of butcher paper from Home Depot. It cost me like $14. I tore off like 5-foot sections, crumpled them all up, opened them all up, taped them to the wall with masking tape, like boulders, and stacked them on top of each other, painted them all, stuffed moss into the cracks, and I made the live-action cave that way.
There's a photo of that in your on your Kickstarter, right? Or it was in the video.
You see a picture of me taping those up on the wall. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it wasn't enough. The set wasn't big enough, so I needed to do something else. So what I ended up doing was literally taking a foam core and making a foam core box, crumpling up foil and stretching it all out and making it look as much as like the set that I could, miniature. I spray painted the whole thing with black primer. Then I went in with that kind of like stone spray paint you can get, the one that has like spatters out that kind of stone texture.
Oh yeah,
like a stipple or whatever.
Yeah, and then I swear, Chris, I swear, colored lights and that became my cave set. And that cost me about $25.
And it looked great because I've watched that episode and I loved because you have a tutorial on the Stan Winston School of Character Arts about how to do those rad puppets too, right?
The rad puppets now, and listen, I gotta watch what I say here because I love the Stan Winston School and they've been very good to me. But I would say that trying to build a rod puppet live on camera is not the smartest thing in the world that I've ever done. and I look at my poor Gekaniki puppets and think what this could have been. But hey, I was willing to do it in front of camera. I was willing to try to, you know, kill two birds with one stone. They wanted me to do a rod puppet thing. I needed a rod puppet for my show, and I figured, hey, how hard could it be? It was actually turned out to be pretty hard. The hand puppet was a little easier because I thought I was being smart, and I went, well, you know what I'll do is I'll set up my own video camera, and I'll just, you know, when I think of it, I will tape scenes of me, you know, sculpting, and I told them, I said, hey, you can call it the Shan Cam, so that way you don't have live. But they didn't know. If you're pardon this is an old Sam Raimi term. Fake shemp the whole thing. Where I took a latex and polyfoam run of the head and I painted it to look like clay. And I had made the mold pieces. All the molds were done. The whole puppet was finished. And I stuck the clay colored latex and polyfoaming back into the mold and made additional mold pieces to show how I made the mold. So it's not that the information's bad. The information's all good. But in order to sit down and sculpt, put mold walls up, mold a hand puppet like that live on camera would take days because it takes days. It doesn't. You can't. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who could do it in an hour, and it would look like they could do it in an hour. So in order to, again, I have to kind of keep my quality up as high as I can, and yet still try to keep on the Stan Winston School schedule. It's kind of a bit of a compromise, And I thought we did some interesting thing with a plastic bag tongue and all that stuff. But again, like the Goblin was built on my own, on my time, my money, my resources, my time, my everything, and I think that the quality of that puppet is better. And that's just me because I did it on my time. Doing something live in front of a camera is not the smartest thing in the world.
And Mike, just because you had to go and come back, we're talking about our favorite low budget tricks. So Shannon's was
for me it's straight up Fright Hype. Like that entire show is like my show is shot in the spare bedroom of my house, and I don't think anybody realizes how lo-fi that entire process is.
You got good sound, I think, and you got a good voice for radio. So it's I think between that and just your post production skills, you like it's a test.
What I was going to ask Shannon actually was like, how many people are involved with Phantom Harbor? Like, how many people work on that show with you?
Honestly, it depends. When the live action is shooting, sometimes it's just my wife and I, because my wife is an operatic soprano. She's been on stage, so she basically directs me, and it's me, and I do all the lighting, I do everything. Now there are times when I will have a specialty prop that needs to be built, and I will talk to a friend and say, hey, I need something. Would you build this for me? And then, again, I'm on their time schedule. They'll build it, and when they're good and ready, they give it to me. So, I mean, when you see all the names, and there's a lot of thanks, it's because I've asked people, hey, do you mind, coming on this day? I'd say the largest crew I have ever had on any Phantom Harbor episode, cast and crew, was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. Have been the largest, and that was for a Halloween show. And And it was, I don't think all 9 people were ever there at the same time. Like we shot one sequence and 3 people were there, and they would have pizza and they would all sit down and they would leave, and then another 3 people would show up and would shoot another sequence and then they would leave. So it was never like, I've got a 1-car garage that was built in 1923. It probably held, I don't know, Model T. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's just no room. There's no room. I mean, people were sitting on the patio, like a green room, waiting to go on. I'd have to go, hey, guys, shh, we're filming sound in here, because out there talking and smoking and, having beers and stuff. It's like, I can't.
Oh, we've had to deal with
that.
We've had to deal with, kids outside bouncing basketballs as they walk past, and, people with their, low bass thumping, rap music, go park in front of the house, and, it's like, and you come out and you're like, hey, we're shooting a movie, and they look at you like, what? And they give you a dirty look.
How are you shooting a movie? Like, there's no movie set here.
Yeah, exactly.
So Michael, how many people are on your? Is it just you?
It's just me, man. So I have a set that I have it's a green screen that is thumbtacked to my wall in my spare bedroom. I've got PVC pipe that I have. I use toilet flanges and screwed it down into the floor. And I just have like the basic like clamp style lights. I've got 4 of them mounted on the green screen. I've got a 2-point system on me, plus another light that I use as like a moonlight like hair light kick, and that's like screwed into the wall. And that's my entire setup. Like I drop the boom pole, I drop the boom down into frame, and then I use that to set focus, pull it back up, hit record, run into frame, record the episode, and then go down when it's done, and and cut it myself. So yeah, it's all me on it. It's a ridiculous process. I keep saying if I ever clean up the room and do the laundry that's like built up around me, as like each week there's more and more laundry to the sides of me as I shoot. If I ever get all that done, I'm gonna like do a Periscope or something and actually record the process. But right now the room's too dirty and messy for me to ever actually show anybody what it looks like.
I've done that for update videos too, with just setting up the I have a monitor, and I'll like literally run back and forth and keep focusing the lens until I can step back and I'm like, okay, I'm in focus now, because I literally have nobody to and I've got I don't have a boom pole, I've got a paint roller stick.
Nice. I've done that too. Yeah.
I've drilled a hole in it and I stuck my shotgun mic into it and just have an easel that I can raise up really high and stick the paint roller stick into it. But I wanted to say my favorite low budget special effect trick is reverse photography, which Shannon, I don't know if you were present for the filming of the facehugger sequence in Aliens.
No, they shot that in England, and I didn't get to go to England.
Oh, bummer. That scene, I'm sure you know how it was done.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You didn't see.
No. Yeah, I know. And Jim Cameron was famous for saying, no one can tell when rain on camera is flowing backwards, and he was right.
Yeah, and those that whole sequence. There were two epiphanies in my life, and they were both from Aliens movies that made me really want to make movies. So the first one was the facehugger scene, finding out how that was done with different dummy facehuggers and quick editing and reverse photography, and I was like, well, crap. And I have not seen a piece of CGI to touch that in my life. And the other thing was in Alien 3. It was like, I'm not actually a big fan of Alien 3 as a movie, but the effects, between trying to figure out if the torn apart Bishop was an animatronic or Lance Henriksen in makeup, and realizing that the alien that was chasing them around was a miniature rod puppet. Like, I'd never heard of rod puppets until then, and then I saw these puppeteers working this rod puppet, and it just blew my mind, and I was like, that's it, I gotta, like, I ran into my garage and I started grabbing like chicken wire and paper mache and like the Halloween skull, and I like cobbled together my own paper mache alien. I was 16 years or 17 years old at the time, and it looked awful, but it was still like, I was like, these guys are doing it, and like they're not too much, like maybe 10 years older than me, like I'm gonna just start doing it. And much to the chagrin of my parents, who thought I'd be better as an orthodontist or a lawyer or something, God knows why. But now making the Quantum Terror, going back to what you were saying about, not being allowed by executives to make the kind of movie you want or having to fight them on it, between that and, I feel like I'm still that 17-year-old. I'm still working in my garage. Like you say, Shannon, it's a magical place to be.
Garage, I'm a huge fan of garage stuff. I'm huge.
And I'm still working with materials like from Home Depot or stuff that I have lying around. I mean, I'm consuming all the things I've collected over the last 10 years. They're all being thrown into the fire of this project. But I'm kind of making, like, my, Neil Blomkamp's making Alien 5, and I'm kind of making, like, okay, I can't make an Aliens movie, but I'm making the kind of movie that I would make if it was an Aliens movie. And it's like I'm throwing in all of these things. I think this is really the magical thing about this project for me, about the Quantum Terror, is I'm throwing in my life experience into this movie. And I'm not saying I can't do that with other movies. I definitely can. I've got the keys to so many doors that I as Stephen King says, and more doors than I can open in a lifetime. But it's like I'm throwing my feelings in about what I see young people in society kind of suffering through at the moment, and they don't even know they're suffering through it because they don't know any different. But we all grew up in kind of a pre-internet era, so I think we've got a little frame of reference, and I want to say something about that. And I don't want to preach it, on Facebook. I want to make a piece of art that says it. And I grew up with a lot of friends who were gay and lesbian, and they were human beings to me. They weren't stereotypes like presented on television. So I wanted to make a piece of art that kind of represented a lesbian character as a human being. And I'm way into quantum physics, how bizarre a science that is, and the implications of what it says about the reality that we live in. And I found that it all kind of tied together into one commentary. And I know if I took that to a producer or Hollywood, they would just look at me and go like, "You're just like, how can we market that?" And so the fact that I've been able to take so little, and have the help and support of people who know what this project is and have read the script, and have heard me talk about why I'm doing it and why I'm passionate about it and why I need to make it. And it's not anymore just an issue of, and you guys are absolutely right, no one will care as much about your project as you do, but to have people say, my lead actress, Kristen Kochel, was like, I love this movie. I'm so happy to be a part of this movie. She's working below her normal rates too. And she's like, I've never seen anything like this. And I really believe in this story. I think it's a really important story. And I'm not tooting my own horn here, but it's really touching and encouraging to hear that, and to have Jenna Green, all the people who are working on this story read this script. And I keep saying to myself, like, what is it, like, they must really like me that they keep showing up. But I think it's really what I really just said something that I felt was honest and was important to me, and I think that sincerity, they were able to relate to that, and so they really wanted to be a part of the project. And it's just, I mean, that's happening in my garage, and they don't care, and they believe in the project, and other people believe in the project, and I'm getting all the support, and it's just, I can only describe it as kind of magical. It's like it's like some Steven Spielberg moment where I've touched something and it glows and it sends out this shockwave that like hits everybody, and I see that happening with you too, Shannon. It's like somebody like crochets or knits a character you created, or somebody, you worked on Evil Dead 2, somebody shows you an Evil Ed tattoo. It's like you tapped into something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because I think that, and I don't know, the one thing about Kickstarter, because I mean, we've been talking about a lot of stuff, and this is my first time I've ever cried, and reason, and I'll be honest with you, the reason why I've never crowdfunded anything in my life, I thought to myself, if I can't get this own, then it's not worth doing. You know what I'm saying? And I really thought that. I really did. And listen, last year, this year it was Turok. I mean, go into it because we'd be here all night. But that's what two of my prints. Well, I mean, in a nutshell, I was just sitting around thinking one day about not Turok Dinosaur Hunter, not the video game, not the 2008 animated movie, but the old 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s comics about two Native Americans. Actually, they were two Mandan Indians who are in a valley of dinosaurs and cave people who are trying to get home. And I literally thought to myself, you know what? Native Americans, gaming tribes have money. I mean, they do. They've got casinos. And through my work at Cinema Makeup School, one of my students happened to be a Sequan, and we talked, and I told him about the idea for Turok, and he said we should take this to the tribe and talk to them about putting money into it and trying to develop it. Because I thought, what better way to bring the story of two Native Americans than to have the Native American, a tribe, because you can't get all of them together, but you can get 2 or 3 of them together behind you saying, we want to make this movie. And they were interested in making the movie, but the money never came. And I have been told 800 different excuses, and I really kind of don't care, because the way I look at it is, if it's meant to happen, it will happen. If it's not meant to happen, it won't happen. So watching Alec do his Kickstarter, and he was very fortunate and got funded. Watching my friend Kevin McTurk do his Kickstarter, he was very fortunate. He got funded. My friend Mike Spatola, who did the book The Monstrous Makeup Manual, which are a great series of books, he got funded. But then watching my daughter not get funded, Sandy Colora not getting funded twice, not just once, twice. A lot of people struggling through Kickstarter, and I was like, do I really want to do this? And I thought to myself that I would never do it just for a project. And I'm not saying it to be an asshole. I'm really not, guys. Because I know when something's highly personal to you and you want to make a piece of art and you just don't have the resources, and if your friends and family and their friends and family will support you, God love you, do it. And, I hope you get to do what you want to do. But I was thinking, because I am a teacher through the Stan Winston School and through Cinema Makeup School, and I've met a lot of really creative young people. And there's two things that I've realized. Number one, if you're trying to teach a syllabus, either at a school or through a video, you really don't have the time to really teach someone the subtleties of what they really need to learn to be a professional. But again, the same way that you can't have a school with, 300 students in it, all learning at their own speed, you have to kind of keep everyone flowing through at the same pace, is the same reason why you can't do the shaving cream under the water with a full movie crew. But if you had a small workshop, you could do it. So I was thinking, well, if I put a workshop together and I could start having workshop classes for these dedicated artists that I meet and say, this is how you properly do gore effects. Let me show you from the very beginning. We're going to start with mixing your own blood and what makes good-looking screen blood and what makes shitty-looking screen blood. Start from the very bottom and work your way up. I thought if I could do that while I had Phantom Harbor going on, that the two would work together, because then I would have students, and not obviously gore effects, because these students, most of them I've taught prosthetic effects to and special effects to, and they're really talented, and they all want to know the same thing. How and where do I start? And I thought, well, if I offered them Phantom Harbor and said, listen, guys, you know what? We're almost through with this course. You're hanging out in the studio anyway. Why don't you help me do this? You'll get a credit on your resume. You get to say, hey, I worked on a Shannon Shea project, blah, blah, blah. And it's actually helps you. You help me, I help you. We're helping each other, and we build a community. We build a community of monster makers. I feel the same about animators. There are people out there who make these little animated pictures, post them on Instagram. It's like, hey, bring it to Phantom Harbor. Why don't we make a big deal about it? You have a little story you want to tell? Let's make an animated picture out of it. Let's make a big deal about it. That's what I'm saying. So I had in my brain that Phantom Harbor was the excuse for bringing all these creative people together and bringing them all together to work with each other. Well, all I can say is I am a week and 3/4 into it. We shall see if that community ever gets together. I hope it does, because it would be, talk about magical, it would be frigging amazing. It will be amazing. If I could get it done, everyone's brains will melt out of their ears. It'll be the scanners on a global scale. I promise, heads exploding, coast to coast.
There's one of the things about Kickstarter that I learned, and I think I told you before, I helped out with the Harbinger Down Kickstarter, is you kind of get a nice little start, and then you get this drop off, and you think no one's paying attention, and then at the very end, when that urgency is there, that's when most of them come out. I also learned if you use the words Kickstarter or Indiegogo on Facebook, I learned this from Mike, they actually limit your reach. So you got to find a way around saying Kickstarter when you post about it on Facebook.
Really? I found with Fright Hype, whenever I actually specifically mentioned a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign, my view count dropped off drastically. And whenever I find a way to creatively talk about something that's a project that you can help make happen or something like that, it doesn't take the same kind of hit. And I was told by someone else that it's part of the crazy Facebook algorithm where if it gets flagged somewhere along the line for promoting Kickstarter or promoting Indiegogo, that yeah, like it'll negatively affect your view count in terms of like the just the way that the Facebook algorithm works is very complicated, and there's a lot of excuses that they will take to suppress your video, and like audibly saying or referring to Kickstarter in the description is one of the many ways to do that. Like it's really brutal the way they do that. And I think it's just trying to like bait boosts, like bait people into paying for boosts. But I don't know. The last couple weeks on the show, I've even kind of tempted it. Last week I talked about a successful Kickstarter campaign, and it was the biggest show we've ever had. Talked about how, and I think I actually used the term Kickstarter in the video last week for the first time in a long time, talking about the Friday the 13th game. They were successful with theirs, I think, and it was just I had talked about them the week before, and very like I danced around the idea that they were kickstarting, and then last week on the show I talked about the Don't Cuddle the Krampus campaign, and congratulated the Friday the 13th campaign because I had talked about them in the past, and last week's show was huge. So,
but the word congratulations will boost your reach.
But again, like I don't like people like we talked about this, but I don't think like there's somebody going in and listening to these and going, okay, he says congratulations in this one, so it jumps. So
well, I
like,
think it's the written word.
It's really weird. I think last week was an anomaly. I mean, last week's show for Fright Hype has like 90,000 views, and
Awesome.
this week's has like at the point where last week's show had 80,000 views, this week's has like 16, 17,000. So I mean, there's arbitrary things that change what makes a show really successful in terms of that stuff. But yeah, I think like I try to avoid it and try to like dance around it and be creative in how I promote stuff. But at the same time, if like I really believe in a project, I'm gonna push it. Like I'll definitely I'm definitely gonna talk about Phantom Harbor in the next week or so and try to push that because I do really like what I've seen on it and want to get it out there. I did a I was when we talked to Sandy a few was it a month and a half, 2 months ago. I was still trying to dance around it a little bit, and in the last week or two, I've gotten a bit cockier. So I'll try it with Phantom Harbor and see if we can get something out of it. But yeah, it's it's really weird the way that they try to dance around that stuff.
Yeah. I want to comment on something you said because I do believe you because I mean my wife is a long story but she started an Etsy page a couple of years ago. I mean Etsy shop a couple of years ago. She was making these pendants and things, resin pyramids and stuff, and she didn't expect anything to really happen. She thought that she would just do it and whatever, and her business really took off. I mean, it really took off. She sold stuff. I mean, literally around the globe. Her stuff has she has sold in countries that go all the way around the globe. And then all of a sudden, Etsy changed its policies about how or where they would put your stuff within collections. And
Yeah.
it wasn't whoever was posting the most or whoever was posting most frequently. It became who was paying
Yeah.
Etsy the most amount of money to be seen. And I do believe you. I think that if Facebook is probably has an algorithm where they know what the waveform of recognizes those words, and they do probably limit your reach because they do want you to buy a boost. That's how they make their money. They want you to buy a
Yeah.
boost. And I'll tell you the truth, I might buy a boost next week because next week is Thanksgiving, and I don't expect there'll be a lot of people on Facebook not talking about college football. So, I'm going to do my best and try to. And I was thinking, well, you know what? I'll throw $50 down, and I will tell you, it is the first real money I have thrown down on this campaign. Everything else has just been what I have, footage that I have, you know, the lights that I have, you know, I had latex and stone and everything, and that's why I made the little mini monster masks, which, by the way, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, Christopher, but are effing cool. And
Yeah.
I'm going to do a whole series of them. I did the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I'm going to do a whole series of these because they're just too effing cool. And
Are these
and this is
Kickstarter prizes?
they're my $500 prize, and the reason why they're $500 is because, first of all, it's you know, going to be a rarity. Well, it will be if I get funded. I promise I'm going to smash the molds. I really will. I mean, and I'm a man of my word. If I'm nothing else, I am a man of my word, and I will smash the molds. And
Will you
no one
post a
will be able to
video
get.
of you smashing the molds?
I will. I will friggin' do it in slow motion. I don't. I'll do it dressed.
Do it.
I'll
With like
do
that
it
bullet
dressed like a
cam that like
gorilla
whips
for
around it?
2001 Katana. That's right. I will do it. But the thing is that if not, I'm gonna just sell them. But the thing is, but I had a this is a weird thing. I had a weird big moment with my wife, who is currently out of town. My wife, she's she's not doesn't sing that much anymore, and now she writes. She's a writer, and she was finishing her last novel. It's a long story, but she's out of town finishing her novel, and I was talking to her, and I told her about this mini monster mask, and she said it was literally big. She went, I don't get it. And I went, what do you mean? She goes, can you wear it? I went, no. She goes, does it fit on a dog or something? I said, no, it's just a mini rubber latex mask. Well, I don't get it. It's like, what is there not to get? It is for people who love to collect masks. The one thing I know, because I've been to their houses, they have no shelf space because masks can be big. I mean, you buy something from Jordu or Casey Love or Steve Wang or Norman Cabrera. Some of these masks are pretty. I mean, they're beautiful and they're huge. But what if you work in a cubicle? You know, you can't have one of your big rubber masks there, but you can have a bunch of little masks around your computer terminal, and no one's going to say shit. And they're really cool, right? And she still didn't get it. And I was like, oh my God. So I brought it to school and showed my students, and when they lost their shit, I figured I was okay. I'm like, okay, I'm fine.
This
My
is-
wife, I don't get it. So yeah.
This is one of those things. I think we might have lost Mike. Are you still there? I think we lost Mike. But maybe we'll come back. We should wrap up soon. We've gone over time.
That's
But
okay.
but I was going to ask what your favorite Kickstarter prize was, and I think you answered my question.
No, can I tell you what my favorite Kickstarter prize is? It's the one that it's the one I haven't announced yet, and it's the one that I'm not going to officially announce on my Kickstarter page until I reach $10,000, and it is the latex Gekaniki hand puppet.
Oh wow!
I'm going to sacrifice my original Gekaniki hand puppet to Kickstarter fans because I think it's. Let me put it this way: if the Gekaniki come back, because I've been asked, will the Gekaniki come back? And I actually have a story, The Revenge of the Gekaniki, which I want to do. I'm as impractical as this sounds. I really want to try to do them stop motion. I just think they need to be stop motion. I think it's such a Ray Harryhausen type of creature anyway. You know, these kind of lizard guys. I think they should be stop motion. And
We're doing stop motion in our movie too. It's
Yeah.
gonna be. It's not the first time I've done it, but it's the first time I've done it to this level. I'm doing braided wire armatures, and I'm actually going to make these female kind of creatures out of my daughter's Monster High dolls. I'm going to make packing tape sculptures of them, so they're going to be these weird surrealistic female creatures that move in stop motion not for a creature effect per se, but for more of a weird dream sequence, because you have to work stop motion in there.
I'm going to tell you something, Chris. This is true. This is true. Now, I could be wrong about this. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Recently, a friend of mine who was about to produce a low-budget film that he actually has some funding for, most of his funding, he said, hey, do you have any advice for me for a low-budget horror guy? What can I do that will make my movie seen by people? And I said, there are two things I believe that you need for any successful ultra-low-budget horror film. Number one is you need just one outrageous scene. whatever it is. You need one outrageous scene and at least one stop motion clip in your film. And I'm sorry, when I think about low budget horror films like Evil Dead, the first one, which had all Tom Sullivan's stop motion stuff in it, huge hit, or Phantasm, outrageous, silver sphere flies into the guy's head and starts pumping the blood out of his body. That's outrageous. Because people will go, God, did you see that scene where that ball knives came out and stuck in the guy's head and started pumping his blood out? That was friggin' horrifying when you were a kid, and it's outrageous. Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine if there was a mainstream film back at the same time? You know, James Bond had been being chased around by these silver spears with knives sticking out of them. You go, wait, what? You know, but in Phantasm, it was like, holy crap, that's cool. Outrageous. You need one outrageous scene and at least one stop motion thing. And I don't know why, but I think that's the magical formula for low budget movies.
We got it covered. We've got it covered. I'm so happy to hear you say that because it's kind of a relief actually.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wrap this up because it's getting late here and it's really late for Mike who's rejoined us.
It's 1:30 in the morning here.
Yeah.
Dude.
So I think that we all could go on for ages.
You could. I mean, I really enjoyed this. This is great. Thanks. I'm glad I made it. I didn't think I was going to.
So let's. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to Chad Armstrong, who's doing his own movie, which is Deimosimine. And I don't know how much he wants to say or not say about it, so I won't speak for him. But if you go to leglesscorpse.com, which is part of the Crypt Network, you can see his project, which looks outstanding as well. It looks very outrageous and has some really cool creature concepts, which he's shown me. I don't know. You can tell me if you can't speak to this. But are you involved a little bit now in the creature work with Deimosimine? I don't know if I can confirm or deny.
So you are, but you're not allowed to talk about it yet.
Probably that's what it is. I'm not majorly involved, but I have some involvement, which I'm very excited about. I have to say, I think Chad's a really great guy, and he works really effing hard with his website and everything he does, and he's very passionate. I believe he's got some sort of system going right now where he's like pretty much guaranteed that this is a passion project, and if he makes any money off of it, I think he said he's going to like figure out a way to give it back.
Yeah,
I don't know how he's managing that, and I don't want to speak for him, so you know, but he's got a really outrageous character named Mr. Balls that he talks about, and you know, it looks great. And the Phantom Harbor, you know, I really enjoy the other shows, and I think it's important to kind of bring back this artistry. You know, I think that's one thing, without going on another tirade, you know, to make the show go in longer. I just feel that audiences are kind of being deprived of artistry these days, and they're kind of getting like used to and accepting of this kind of one-size-fits-all kind of filmmaking that seems to be pervading the major theaters, which, you know, I mean, there's still good stuff coming out of major movies. You know, I'm sure we're all going to go see the Star Wars movie, and that'll be great. But, you know, I think the Phantom Harbor, to me, represents a return to some artistry that I think, and the fact that it's for all ages is really important as well, because I think that, you know, it's the kind of thing I want to show my kids, and, you know, and you know, I sit them down while I'm making monsters. Jenna and I were making monsters today. We're doing an eyepiece that we're doing some stop motion with, and we were doing a puppet with a tentacle mechanism that is very outrageous. Shannon and Mike, I'll send you guys a picture of it privately so you can see what I'm doing. But, you know, my daughters and one of my friends who's my miniature builder, she came around with her two daughters for a play date. And I had them all sitting around with Sculpey, and they didn't know what to do with it. They were watching what we were doing. They were just making different shapes. But they were still, like, there with their hands in it and, you know, having a good time all sitting around the table. And I think that kind of thing is something that maybe is lacking in the content that's out there these days. So Shannon, I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I do believe in the Phantom Harbor, and even if you don't make your Kickstarter, which I really believe you should, and anybody listening, please go look at this. I think this is an important project in one way or another, even if it's like just an annual, like half-hour special, like just Phantom Harbor Life Day TV special or something like that. You gotta keep doing this stuff because I really love it. And Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff Jr., all these past movies I've watched, they're all in the Quantum Terror. I am absorbing everything that you guys do, and I'm kind of regurgitating it back into this movie. And it's my first feature length, but I feel I've written a very interesting script. I don't know if it's like the greatest script in the world, but I think it's good, and I think it has some meaning to it. And all of everything that is going into this movie is, I think, coming from everyone's heart and everyone. And I show them every cast and crew. I send them videos of you. I send them the other podcasts we've done. I send them clips. I tell them to watch movies that I've watched they've never heard of before. And they come back to me with such excitement, and it's all going into the Quantum Terror. So, thank you for that as well. And it's just a privilege.
You say that. It's very flattering to hear that, and thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
It's a privilege to be, and it's not just because of what you worked on, but your enthusiasm, your love for this, your sincerity in why you do this, and Mike, your sincerity in why you do Fright Hype. You're not making any money. You love being involved. And I think this community is here. I think the three of us talking right now is a testament to that community. And I anyone that's listening to this, I don't think we've got any viewers right now, but I think that people will link to this. Don't be afraid to be part of this community, because I think it was Craig Ferguson who said, there's a birthday and there's a death date, and there's a dash in the middle, and where's that dash? So like, what are you gonna do with that dash? Are you going to just keep, doing your daily routine, go into the, big blockbuster movies? Go find that undiscovered stuff, because we're there and we want to welcome you. So, but
I want to just leave saying this one thing. This is because you said something, and it's true. I was at a meeting at Cinema Makeup School. We were talking about the special effects program. And I turned to the administrators and I just said, listen, guys, this is the only thing that I think is important, that when a student leaves this school, even if they make the conscious decision to never, ever, ever pursue this professionally or as a hobby, I want them to walk out loving it, so that when they sit in a movie theater or watching television or something on the internet and they see a makeup or they see a practical puppet effect, they have an instant connection to it, because they know what it took to make it, and they have an appreciation for it, and they want to pass that on to somebody else and go, hey, look, that's a multi-piece makeup. I did that back at Cinema Makeup School, and that's really tough to do. I sculpted this thing and this and that, and suddenly they're involved, and that perpetuates this. That's why Phantom Harbor is for everyone. Phantom Harbor is for everyone, because I want to make new little monster fans. Because I was a monster fan when I saw the original King Kong. I was hooked at 3. And I've heard stories about people saying, hey, I showed my 10-year-old Predator, and you're going, why? It's that Predator is not for your 10-year-old. It's for your 11-year-old. But but the truth of the matter is that there's got to be some things that are current, because you know how it is trying to get a kid to watch Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. You might as well pull their out. But
it's so good.
That makes them, that ignites their imagination, that is still within the realms of being safe, and still makes them go, ooh, that's cool. The head is talking. That's cool. It's like, yeah, it's cool, and it's creepy and it's cool, and I want to put their feet on the path, because I think that it is a sure way of creativity, and I think that's what hooks us to our humanity, is our creativity. I think that's why I think crimes are committed by people who are out of touch with their creativity in some way. You know, they don't believe I'm a good writer, I'm a good artist, I have anything creative to give this world. People who are out of touch with it, you know, and if more people got in touch with it, I think this whole place would be amazing. We would be in a utopia. So I just want to somehow get people back in touch with their own creativity, you know. It's no better time in history to do it. Now. Do it now, you know.
I think that this is an era that needs artists, and we need to help people come to understand the joy of the arts, because I think that we've all become too busy with the horrors of the world, and I think that's partly in, you know, the internet has brought so much great information to us about how to do this stuff, but it also brings us so much turmoil, and I think it's weighing, especially on young people's minds, it's weighing too hard on our minds. You know, I think everyone walks around feeling like they need to solve the world's problems or figure out the world's problems, and they're not giving enough time to their own imaginations and bringing their own brand of joy to the world, whether it be through, you know, movies or books or comics or whatever. So yeah, that's my only follow up to that. But I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna hit the end broadcast. But Mike, Shannon, always a real pleasure. And I will say to you, Shannon, as you know, with my Indiegogo, which I met my goal. It wasn't the amount I needed, but it allowed me to keep my Indiegogo open so I could keep collecting funds, which is a double-edged sword in itself. But you know, I only say, like, I know I don't have to say this, but keep on doing it, man. You know, don't give up on it. It's worthy, and I know Mike believes that, and
well, like I believe it because it's not just Indiegogo, and like, or it's not. It's weird because I was hoping to tell the story with Chad, but Fright Hype exists because of a failed Kickstarter. It's a show that I had planned for years, and I ended up hooking up with Chad through my Kickstarter last year, and that Kickstarter didn't work out, and then I went to him with another film, and as a way to promote it through Legless Corpse, and then that grew into a relationship with Crypt, and then that became Fright Hype, and so, I mean, it's one of those things too where even a closed door with a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign or whatever anybody's doing, it's not always a closed door, and it's just a matter of keeping that perspective of just making sure you know what you want to do at the end of the day, you know.
I am really glad you said that, Mike. I'm really, you know what? That's a really great thing to hear. Thank you for saying that.
No, but it is. I mean, honestly, if I hadn't had a failed Kickstarter last year, then Fright Hype wouldn't be 26 episodes deep right now. It wouldn't, you know. And I'm probably better off because Fright Hype is 26 episodes deep than if I had made the movie I was trying to make for $9,000 last year, you know.
And I'm just glad that I reached out to you when I did, because I'm pretty sure you're going to be an internet celebrity pretty soon. So.
No, well, I'm going to burn all my bridges by getting drunk on this podcast tonight.
Nice, dude. Oh, man, that looks good. I may have to go sign off and go do some of that myself.
It's 1:30 in the morning here. I've been doing it for hours.
Dude, you're my hero.
I only finished one glass of wine. Well, it was a margarita before that. But anyway, gentlemen, I will end this by saying to whoever's listening, thank you for your time. I hope you'll check out our campaigns and not just help us out financially, but reach out to us because, you know, there are people who have contributed. They are internet friends now, and the relationships are great. You can be a part of these projects beyond just your financial contribution. You know, you can be actively involved. That's the wonderful thing about it. And I will say, of course, to Mike and to Shannon, I am always at your service. I believe to be a friend is to be of service. No debts required. And so I'll be in touch with both of you, sending you my stuff, and anything you guys need from me, I'm here for you. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. You gentlemen have a great night.
You too.
You too. Good night. Nice to meet you there.
Good to meet you too, Shannon.
Okay, Mike. Take care, buddy.
And everyone, thanks for listening to our podcast. Good night.